Welcome to hopefully an insightful conversation around responsible digital transformation. My name is Axente. I work for PwC UK in the AI Center of Excellence, and currently I'm leading one of our propositions around responsible AI, and also look after our AI for Good efforts. My interest in technology started quite a while ago. So I'm Romanian, and back in the days when in my high school years, I ended up joining a special program in high school focused on computer science. And although I ended up following a business-driven career, so both the uni and then postgraduate, technology seemed to be there to follow me all the time until I made a decision to focus my consulting career on technology and digital transformation. And that's where I started the journey in understanding how technology can make a difference and how to best work with the technologists and everyone else to be able to have a sustainable approach. In PwC, I have spent time working with clients across different industries and helping them with their digital vision and strategy, and also create and develop and deliver transformation programs focused on digital. Until several years back, there was an opportunity for me to focus on one of the technologies, AI, and here I am. But first of all, I think we should be asking ourselves, but what is digital transformation anyway? What is transformation, and why does it matter? Why do we talk about it? Obviously the term has probably coined no more than 15, maximum 20 years ago, with the emerging of personal technology, if you want. With the rise of smartphone and its adoption, we have gone through a process of consumerization of IT that opened up a huge appetite from us as a consumer to experiment with technology. And with that, companies have slowly realized that technology is not all about monolith ERPs or CRM platforms. It's something much more distributed and agile and dynamic. And the companies and organization started experimenting with technology and slowly adopting it. And once in this process, they realized that it's not just about the technology they deploy, the newest one that were the emerging one at the hour, but also how to slowly incorporate it in your technology stack into a way that is sustainable, how the use of gradually sleek and digestible and user-friendly technology will affect the processes that collectively create a certain structure and operating model. And ultimately, this use of technology and democratization to a certain extent of IT is what will be the impact of people. On one hand, of their ability to perform their day-to-day tasks, but also a fundamental shift and transformation on how the tasks are being performed. And lastly, on the overall well-being, right? Because as we've increased the amount of technology that we require to perform our jobs, and reducing the human impact in this process, there is a price to be paid, and I think you have seen in the last few years this discourse around digital well-being and how to best use this technology in a balanced and responsible manner. So, although at the beginning the digital transformation was very much rooted in the business transformation domain, gradually has moved into a life of its own that will be based on the fact that whomever tried to jump into this journey needs to be able to balance the three core types of capability for people, tech, and process. And while up to probably a few months ago, consultants like my colleagues across the firm, plus everyone else who works in the business, have been advocating and preaching about the need to accelerate digital transformation, those who understood the benefit of technology and invested strategically and seriously are harnessing right now. The others, and there are many, many laggards around us, are struggled, but they are being pushed by the current context. And throughout the lockdown, there was this meme, a screenshot of a part of a diagnostic saying, who is the digital transformation driver in your enterprise? And the answer were CEO, CTO, or coronavirus. And although this sounded like a joke, obviously, it's something that we see a lot those days. So our clients are very much interested now, how can technology meaningfully help them survive during those times? Be able to increase the efficiency in their operation, and what will be the cost and what will be the pace to do it. And obviously, as a PwC, we have gone through this journey, and we were fortunate enough to have a leadership who was fascinated by technology and took it seriously. And we started this process of digital transformation ourselves a few years back, 4 years to be more precise, even before that, experimenting with different lines of service. And we started creating various programs and methodology to allow us to get sustainable benefits out of the deployment of the technology, but also being able to advise our clients in a meaningful way, and being able to have that integrated approach that technology needs. That integrated approach that allows you to keep a balance in between the three capabilities and how they should be updated, upgraded to be able to fit new market demands. And the first example I'm gonna talk about to you today is obviously a methodology, a process that we call BXT. And we call BXT, of course, because it's an acronym that comes out of bringing together business, technology, and experience together to deliver something that is a rounded approach. While many other companies would have focused either primarily on technology or business or transformation. If you look at consulting companies or digital marketing or boutique houses, what we quickly realize is that we need to have this balance and focus on all of them. You need to be able to understand the fundamental shifts that happened within an organization, how to best manage it. We need to be understanding not just the emerging technology that appear and someone could benefit from it, but also how it impacts the legacy systems and the current infrastructure that ultimately delivers value within that business. But very interestingly, the whole user experience, right? And how do we start putting the people in the center of how we develop technology, and then how technology is being used, because it's not just about being able to have a user experience strategy. It's important to understand that the customer needs to have an equal, easy and engaging experience to be able to remain your customer over time. This approach also was built on the fact that us as a business, we operate in so many different parts of the business. We have this principle called strategy through execution, because obviously we have a strategy, business unit. We acquire one of the strat houses several years back, Booz & Co. Also, we have, besides our traditional lines of service like audit or tax or deals and acquisition or cybersecurity, we provide services in all those fields. So it was in fact a right thing to do, to bring together different strategies, different experts from across the firm, and foster this cross-disciplinary approach and see, what the magic happens. We've run countless of engagements with this, and we have been able to support our clients to change their focus. It's not just about the methodology. Ultimately, it was a change in perception, how digital transformation should be managed, and set up a healthy foundation that will allow the clients to be agile enough, but also strategic and sustainable enough, so that they will add on by themselves various transformation programs. The second example that I want to give, it's in fact my home. I sit in technology and investment, which is a new business unit was created 4 years ago, and is a cross loss, as we call it, a cross line of service unit that its main mission is to be able to drive the digital transformation using some of the emerging techs like AI, blockchain, VR and AR, drone, data analytics, and of course innovation in a sustainable manner. I was talking with Martin earlier, the fact that a couple of years back, or a few years back, we came up with the notion of essential 8, the technology, the 8 technology that are to watch for, and we've the purpose of bringing it all together is to say that one, the solutions to the problems we have do not magically happen by using one of the technology, by a combination of various technology in a certain degree and applying a digital lens. Out of this thinking, we've launched another initiative, but I'm not going to mention it today in detail, which we call Intelligent Digital, that says ultimately that the focus should not be on solution, which was basically the mantra of tech industry for many, many years, but on the problem, and being able to draft and being able to define the problem will allow you also to find a solution that is comprises of processes and knowledge, human expertise and intelligence, but also a combination of various tools. That's why, for example, I've been having a conversation on Twitter earlier to join about definition of AI and why we should be moving away from abstract definitions of AI into something as concrete as what are the technology that fall under the AI umbrella, and how exactly they are being used in a very concrete use cases, and what's the value they're gonna deliver. But coming back to the technology and investment business unit where I operate, all those technologies have their own capabilities that act as a center of excellence. For example, in my team, we are about 40 people with deep technical expertise, and they range from data scientists, machine DevOps, data engineers, machine learning engineers, interpreters, people responsible technology, responsible AI consultants like myself. I focus a lot on the ethical risk and the governance side of it, but also on the other capabilities. We have this blend of technologists as business consultants that will allow us to quickly develop products and services that are very much market driven, but also take into account the trends, the future development in those fields. And obviously our role and our big part in the internal transformation, digital transformation, is that we act as a focal point for those technology, and also being able to not only develop those offerings with the help of our colleagues in lines of service and very much matching the current problems, but being able to assess and research those emerging tech, and the research it's the next level down from the work that you guys are doing in academia, which is a little bit focused on the realities of today and being able to link it back with the value chain, the business model that exists, and being able to translate it into sustainable, if you want, and responsible type of research and innovation. We also work very closely with the innovation team, and the reason is put on the same level with technology, although it's not a technology per se, is that realized we need to be able to balance the operation with innovation, and being able to again find a sweet spot where processes and framework work alongside creative and innovative people to be able to very quickly come up with novel ways of doing things for ourselves and also for our clients. And obviously, like all the time, the big challenge you will have in being in a unit like this and working with technology that are not 100% proven is the fact that you need to be able to manage well your funds and being able to manage well your resources to allocate it with priority where it matters the most, where we can where we have some sort of a level of anticipation of future demand. Again, this is my home. Very proud of what we have done in the last 4 years, not just for ourselves and driving and changing the mindset within the enterprise, but out of our existence and the fact that we sit under direct supervision of the board. In fact, our boss is one of the board member. His role, if you want, in the landscape is similar to a CTO, CIO, or CDO type of role in other organizations. And that has gave us not just a lot of visibility throughout our business, but also a senior support that allow us to drive all those initiatives quite strategic. And very much linked with the technology and investment is something that, in fact, Martin has pointed out. And the fact that due to the nature of our business and the fact that as all of you might know, we are auditors, we are accountants, and the way we operate in our industry is very much prone to risk. Enough to say that Arthur Andersen, who was one of our competitors, and in fact one of the best out of the big 4, 5, 10 companies, have fallen so dramatically because of the way they have managed Enron. And out of that very prominent case, there was all of us in the industry, professional services, have very quickly acknowledged that we need to be much more professional, responsible, and transparent with what we do, not just on our business and services around tax or audit, but everything we do. Because ultimately, if you look at something like technology is powering the way we deliver those services to our clients. We use a lot of technology for our audit services and for our tax services. Hence, we need to have a bit of a different approach that is much more grounded in us leading by example, walking the walk, talking the talk, and being responsible in our approach to technology. And part of our big transformation, we've produced this sleek, I would call it, responsible technology policy, which is public on our website, but it's a one-pager that is used and distributed among all our staff, and focus on creating the right mindset and behavior around the development and use of technology in various parts. From the supply chain, as you see, we have a big focus on sustainability and impact, environmental impact, but also being able to translate that focus on sustainability and impact on the environment, on the way we run our operation, from the way we organize our offices, the way we recycle technology, the way we choose technology that are low carbon, or being able, very importantly, to foster the adoption of digital skills across society, not just for ourselves, for our clients, and for the future, if you want, the future employees. So our kids and teens that are currently going through the education, and being able to provide a real support. Obviously, a lot of focus on our clients. How do we embed the principles of responsible technology that's very much focused on the core ethical principles and values to everything we do with clients? But one of the very, very important pillars is the focus on people. The focus on people on multiple levels. One, being able to provide the right skills and the right training, part of the job, to be able to perform into increasingly digitized world. The second one, being able to empower the people to be responsible themselves and responsible users of technology themselves, from being on social media all the way down into being encouraged to self-paced upskilling and reskilling, and creating that excitement about technology and learning, the desire to learn and improve themselves. Also, lastly, very, very important is the digital dieting or well-being, is how do we find the right balance into using this technology, but looking after ourselves. As someone who is a lot on social media, you can find me on Twitter, right, or I spend a little bit too much time. I'm one of the beneficiary of this digital dieting attitude, where we are encouraged um, to be the owners of our fate, if you want, on social media, and being able to take breaks and have a healthy schedule and keep a balance in between how much do we engage with everything digital, not just social media, but including our emails and everything. Lastly, in the last few months, our use of video conferencing, before it becomes a burden for ourselves. And probably this is the one thing that is excites me the most about this technology, because I've seen how people have been encouraged to be much more um, curious and experiment with technology, but in the same time being able to keep an eye on their well-being, and having this empowerment giving back to the people has allowed us to move to a big strategic initiative that the firm has been running in the last 2 or 3 years, which is our digitization, the network via understanding that we need to invest in developing new skills for all our people. And I will do my best not to boast about it, but in fact is one of the positive use cases during this crisis, is because of the investment we have had the benefit to have in the past 2 years. When lockdown happened, all my colleagues, for us it was a very easy transition into working offline, because we have been adopting Google. We have adopted Google 3 years ago, so we went cloud, and with that there was a massive change in the way work is being carried and done, and the transparency it offers, but also in the same time the confidence and trust that was put in us as an employee, and the fact that we were empowered to be responsible, not just the way we use technology and we carrying out tasks, but how we manage our workload and our work schedule, so that it fits with our needs, with our if you want, personal circumstances during this crisis. And it gave another boost of confidence for us as employees, to continue doing this work, to continue to upskilling and digitizing and acquiring new skills that will allow us to thrive in this world, rather than being afraid of technology. As I said, the reason we have this program that is supported not just in PwC UK but globally, is on one hand is because we have started this experimentation with technology a while ago, and at some point it was decided to treat it as one of the most important strategic initiatives, also because of the nature of who we are. And I'm not going to go into a bit of the corporate discourse here, but we, because of our purpose and because of the nature of the work we do, we realize that the only way to achieve a sustainable transformation and thriving in the new world is to be able to be much more transparent and responsible. not only a leadership level, but the level of each and every individual. And we have seen some, as I said, exciting results from our colleagues, and now we are in a position to package this and to offer it to our clients based on our experience, right? So we've been through this for 6 or 7 years in some cases, and we have learned a lot doing it ourselves with both successes and failures, and we are now able to provide a better informed approach to digital transformation, especially in this new context. I'm not going to spend time on this slide because obviously we want to spend a bit of time talking about it. Obviously, the importance of focusing on people those days, and how any adoption of technology needs to account for the level of the level of digital skills people have, is even more important during those days, when we'll see a lot of the businesses fighting for survival, a lot of the businesses wanting to thrive and to find the ways to capitalize on opportunity, because ultimately crisis, if you look at Chinese character for crisis, is signifying both a dangerous situation and an opportunity. And putting the people in the center of your digital transformation is not only responsible, but also sensitive, and whomever realize this are going to emerge as winner post this pandemic, and in the months and many years to come. Because obviously we all know by now we are in the middle of an economic crisis, and from 1st of January that is going to become even a more important as we change our status within EU. Therefore, focusing on the people who can drive or not this, and being able to empower them, give them the right support and the right tools and the right upskilling, is going to be fundamental. And I stop here. And Martin, probably we can start a little bit of a conversation for the remaining of time.
Thank you, Maria. That was really excellent. I really appreciate your. I think get a great overview of how PwC approach responsible technology, and how you actually apply that both in your own business and also in your clients' operations as well. I think one of the point I wanted to raise really to discussion was really a point that was in the news this morning from some of the newspapers, talking about Wetherspoon's pubs that are obviously due to open tomorrow, and the fact that they're asking customers to share their contact details every time they visit the pub, in order for that information to be passed on to NHS test and trace. So that seems like a pretty positive thing. But clearly that raises all sorts of interesting challenges, and I guess maybe opportunities as well. And how do you think this approach of responsible technology would actually apply in that situation? How do you think that would work from a kind of client perspective, and also from a customer perspective? Because you might argue it's like an environmental change or regulatory change. It's not mandated, but it seems to be good practice in this current situation. What are your thoughts, Maria?
I think that's an very interesting question, and I would say even our government needs to understand the principle of responsible technology a little bit more before they venture in developing anything new. And I think that's applicable to everyone who is thinking in deploying technology. And when we say responsible technology, we mean basically building and using this technology in an ethical manner, and being able to understand the implication and the risk associated with technology on one hand, the impact this technology or the use will have on individuals, but also on all the parties involved, and being able to transparently communicate with everyone who's involved in a proactive manner, and being able to communicate how the solution is being developed, what are the risk associated with it is, what are the controls, what are the gateways, and that needs to go across the whole life cycle development. You know, it's very important to understand that an app is not just what we see on the phone. The app, what we see on the phone, is the tip of the iceberg, and sometimes, you know, because that we have such a huge deficit of understanding technology in depth. Many people who actually ended up making the decision of the technology have little understanding of the complexity of technology landscape and what it means to build an app and how much it costs and what are the different parts that come together. And only by having this view, you'll be able, being Waterspoon or being the UK government, to be able to start building that trustworthiness that is so necessary, especially when we talk about personal data, right? So let's face it, we all know GDPR, it helps protect us up to a point, but we've seen how many companies breach GDPR, or they learn to go around it, and nothing has happened. And with the rise of autonomous systems applied mainly in the public sphere, we can see how much we are exposed of losing not or the data privacy being affected, the human privacy being affected. So I think there are many questions, you know, someone like Ederson should ask themselves. But based on the leadership communication during the crisis, I would say that their issues are a little bit more profound than just the use of technologies. I think a little bit of a soul searching and honesty moment for the companies required as well.
Yeah, that's a really good, thank you for that. It's a really comprehensive answer. Thank you so much. I guess my question was really around, because clearly Wetherspoon are a large organization, they've got lots of branches, but there are many thousands more smaller organizations that couldn't afford to develop or operate a technology system that of a scale sufficient to deal with that problem. So I'm just wondering to what extent the platform players may at some point, you know, I guess it would need to be in the fairly short term, actually jump into that market and offer a service there for test and trace for pubs and restaurants. And I can imagine the situation where if there was thoughts of a second, or evidence to show that a second wave was starting, that they may require such a system to be mandatory. I mean, you know, you might argue that the government maybe have missed an opportunity to try and create something whilst the lockdown was going on and implement it before establishments were allowed to open. But it's interesting that they've been highlighted as an individual organisation with this initiative, but in fact, of course, this problem applies to all
over, yes,
all food and beverage outlets, and there doesn't seem to be any kind of platform out there that's applicable to people going to those locations, sharing their information. And that's the you know, if you want to go to the pub, that's what you've got to do. You have to share your personal information. So it's a really interesting one. They've done it. You know, I guess it's a good thing. We'll see. But I think the interesting point is all the others that haven't done it or can't do it or don't think they need to do it, and how that might have been dealt with better. So
it is, as I said, it goes back to what I said earlier, is about how quickly do you understand the benefits of technology and being to act on the moment, right? And it's a risky and dangerous endeavor sometimes, and requires you to have not just the right understanding but the right budget. But as we have seen with the two type of contract tracing models that we have out there, one is the so-called Apple and Google model, and the other one the one tried to push by the UK government. I think one of the key learnings here is to realize that Google and Apple have built a tech stack and infrastructure that no one can compete with. If you look at yesterday, the CMA has actually published a report on the state of competition in this field, and their conclusion is daunting. Google and Facebook have become so big that it's impossible for anyone to compete with them, therefore they need to be broken. Hence, I think it's more likely that if they will see that this is a lucrative business, they will step in it right away, and it's something that will impact. And again, those guys are talking about multi-billion type of business opportunity. They're not looking at something like in the likes of hundreds. So that's one element. But depending on the size of this opportunity around the world, maybe they will step in straight away, or there'll be small players like out of the Wetherspoon example, that might be the third parties that will take this business model that works and being able to offer it to other at affordable prices very, very quickly. Or the third option will be that we find other ways of contract tracing, which could be a novel way for us to socialize and drink, if you want, which we shouldn't always take out of the table, because sometimes we think so much in a box and we look for solution for what technology can done within a certain context, but where the biggest opportunities are when we disrupt that model, we get out of the box and see, if we have all this and we have those constraints, how can we think creatively and create something new?
Absolutely, yeah. No, it's a really good point. I mean, it speaks to some of the discourse around the fourth industrial revolution, which is basically sort of saying, well, technology enabled, but one of the key differences in this particular time round is the speed of innovation, the pace of innovation from an idea through to implementation, even if it's in minimum viable product form, can be very, very short. And so it can be deployed to large numbers of people, and if they choose, they can adopt it at scale incredibly quickly, particularly on social media platforms where those users are already there and there's a level of trust between them and the platform provider. So the real question here is, we don't want to constrain innovation, we do want a solution to our problems, but at the same time, can our ability to implement responsible technologies or responsible innovation really respond so rapidly to these new challenges that emerge and get solved and deployed before we've really had a chance to think about it too much? So I wonder if there is a need for innovation around a rapid version of responsible innovation that allows us to respond to rapid changes and to try and anticipate and address these issues in a much more timely manner that the pace of development requires. So, anyway, let's open the question to the floor. I think it'd be interesting to get some comments from our attendees to see if anybody has any thoughts on this matter. What do you think? Any questions?
Don't be shy.
Caroline, what are your thoughts? Do you have any thoughts on that?
If people are feeling shy, we could always encourage them to pop their questions in the chat box.
Oh yeah, good idea.
Of course. I was thinking what you were saying about this balance in between responsibility and being able to innovate. How much Silicon Valley hates the term of responsible innovation and technology, because they founded the whole movement on move fast and break things at any cost, right? And it's not just that we see in some parts of the world regulation that seems to be threatening that innovation, but now is this societal trend and said, wait a minute, you have to be thinking about the values and the ethical consideration that needs to be applied to everything you do in technology. And it's something that we haven't done before, right? So we all know that, study computer science, no one teaches you the science of ethics. And it's so important to develop this mindset from the beginning, start early, right? In early education and discussed about how ethics needs to be driving everything we do, including technology, mostly around technology when we talk about autonomous systems that have a life of their own, if you want. So yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a journey, interesting for all of us, because obviously we are interested in responsible side of technology and innovation. It will be interesting to see how others will adapt to it, and how we'll be able not just to claim they do it, but also demonstrate they do responsible innovation and technology.
Yeah,
it's easy to have a discourse on this, but we need proof. We need to see that things actually happen.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the question I always have is, so you might argue that a strongly ethical stance on innovation should yield benefit, or certainly yield a cultural alignment. But the question is, in the short term, do you take a hit? Is there a price to pay for being ethical before your time or misaligned in some way? And at what point does that quote, you might say, investment in a more ethical system then pay back? It'd be interesting to see that, because you might imagine that the pace of innovation is slowed if you allow a responsible innovation approach to take place, which would tend to slow the pace a little in order to take the time to engage with stakeholders and to address their views. But you might argue that downstream, that delayed implementation actually pays back, because you've got a better product, you've got one that is more fit for purpose. So it'd be interesting to look at the temporal aspects of that. So that admitting there's a delay would be quite a big step, but I think we might have to do that if you say that the pace of innovation is slowed a little. But ultimately, if we can show that it actually then creates a lot more sustainable product long term, which has got a better return on investment, then it's totally worth it. So be an interesting area of study, really. So.
It is, and it's something that I said about balancing purpose with social purpose. It has to become fundamental, and in this exercise, you actually take a leap of faith, saying it's not all about the profit I am expected to derive from this, but it's for my contribution to society, and we will require bravery, courage, and leadership in this field, and we will see very quickly companies that will come out of this as winner, and the poster child, and others who will delay as much as possible until they will start seeing some tangible results. But ultimately, I think it's where us as a collective can do quite a lot. Pushing the agenda of responsible technology in general is something that we should all advocate for wherever we are, in every field we are, because it's working and will be working. As we demanded as citizens or customers and clients, the companies will have no choice except not doing willingly. They will be doing because it will cost them, and it will be an opportunity cost rather than an economic gain.
Yeah, very, very good point. So, Maria, there are a couple of questions, one from Jane Derry and one from Barbara Grimpy in the chat. Can you see them, or should I read them
out? Perhaps you can read them out so that everyone.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah. I mean, everybody can see the chat. But the first question from Jane. Thank you, Jane, for your question. So she says, I'm not sure if this was covered already, but how are you facilitating the transformation of colleagues over to a digital way of working? So you're talking about digital diets and things.
Yes. Yeah. The digital diet looks more of a how do we take a break from technology, but the New Ways, New World, New Skills program I talk about is about facilitating this transition. So invested massively in educational programs and accelerators around the world. And in this process, it's not only that we put people in front of classes, we bring them, in learning experiences outside the work, to be able to get themselves immersed in technology and how it's being used and experiment with this. But also, very importantly, we have created a network of advocates, if you want, or agents of change across the business. Every single team has a digital accelerator who is like the go-to person, and his role is his and her roles are to keep the momentum going, because in any transformation process, change transformation, you need to be able to keep a certain level of excitement and momentum to keep it going. So we've been experimenting with all this until we found something that works. And the fact that we have this commitment part of the job, so this is not outside of anyone's job, is included as part of your responsibility, has made a big difference. The fact people think that, yes, this is part of my job, is to get myself trained and reskilled, and I will do this if I do this, I will be much better the job I have, but also much lower risk of being obsolete with the job I do or whatever I do in the future.
Okay, great. Thank you. So, Jane, are you happy? Oh, great. Thank you. So Jane's confirmed that that's answered the question. Brilliant. Thank you so much. So the second question from Barbara, given that we are indeed going through an economic crisis, do you see any possible tension in terms of realizing responsible IT development, and specifically AI cyber, and becoming economically healthy? So is there a balance there between trying to recover economically and also undertaking responsible technology or responsible IT development?
Oh, bless you, Barbara. I think this is a very, very important question. It's the most important question of those days. How do you balance the two? The responsibility of deploying technology that is fit for purpose and harnesses benefits versus managing the risk versus being able to save companies. I think it's going to be a case-by-case example, depending on how what precarious condition or situation the organization is as a result of all this, and they will be looking at saving themselves at any cost, right? And the issues of responsibility or responsible use and deployment of technology will probably fall as a priority, and that's indeed unfortunate, and to a certain extent it was the worry we had in the AI community and the privacy community around the contract tracing app the government was developing, and because of this it is very important for us to stay vigilant where possible, especially when we're talking about responsible technology use in the public sphere, in the whole of the NHS, in all the other public services that will impact on all of us quite significantly, and being able to call it out, to question it. In a certain way, the government has chosen to ignore the voice from experts in the field, and who not only came up with a healthy criticism of their approach, but also with the way of going forward. And they decided to go ahead with their plan, and obviously it failed. So that shows you that there will be cases. This was a fortunate one when the desired implementation of technology was doomed to fail. So it didn't create tangible harms other than spending some public money, which probably was better spent elsewhere. But at private level, it's going to be a jungle, a bloodbath over there, and some of these companies will need technology regardless. Hopefully, let's hope that will be a way, and there will be enough helping them to be able to balance it off. And obviously will depend case by case. If we're talking about automating processes and jobs, obviously it's something that we've been discussing for a while now. It's the big societal risk of of unemployment, but also the responsible and ethical use of data, and what's the role of the big players. Of course, technology players. Technology is an ecosystem, and because of that, the boundaries of accountabilities are sometimes murky. So maybe some companies will use that in their benefit to hide unethical practices, or maybe we can act via putting more pressure on likes of Google and Apple to come clean and forward, and being able for them to push this agenda. I remain an optimist, and I've seen enough progress coming from advocates and experts who are not working in company like mine. Let's face it, they're coming from likes of Big Brother Watch and advocacy group from academia and research, and I think that there is a way for us to, even if there will be unethical applications, they will not be damaging on the individuals. And at the end, there will be a cost to be paid. If you wait too long and spend too much time over analyzing it and considering all the ethical implication, you might lose your business. The other way, the other extreme is not pay attention at all and then damage it more by using the technology than you let the business fail. Hope I answer your question, Barbara.
Okay, righto. Well, I think that's exhausted the questions, but I just wanted to offer a very warm thanks from the Orbit team for your fantastic presentation and your really insightful, approach to the practical development of world-changing technologies as you do through PwC. So I really appreciate your support for Orbit and also for you offering your time on our advisory board, which is very much appreciated as well. So. And with that, if there are no more questions, I think we'll close. Can I hand over to Serene? I think you have the power.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me.
You're very welcome.